Today's video is brought to you by Clean My Mac X. Hey, it's Chris. Apple's Spring Loaded event just wrapped up, and I want to give you guys several things. Number one, 5 important or interesting details that I feel like might be overlooked or could be missed. Number 2, I want to give you guys my top 5 most exciting details, not just products, but details, features. And then I want to wrap things up with what were my top 5 disappointments. All right, so with all the hype and excitement surrounding a colorful new range of iMacs, a mini LED iPad Pro display, AirTags, and not to mention a redesigned Siri Remote, there's a lot of interesting details that I feel like are kind of living under the surface of this particular event, and I want to dig into some of the most interesting ones. Let's start with the iMac. Now, discerning people are going to have noticed that there's no Apple logo on the front anymore, but that's not really what I'm trying to point out. What I do want to point out is that Apple brought Touch ID to the Magic Keyboard for the iMac, but what they didn't bring, and it's related, is a touch bar. Now, this was the perfect opportunity for Apple to bring the touch bar from the MacBook lineup to the iMac's Magic Keyboard. But the fact that they didn't, I think, is very telling. We've heard rumors swirling that Apple's ditching the touch bar, but I think now we know for sure what direction Apple is headed. The second possibly overlooked detail that I want to point out also has to do with the iMac, and it's this. Yes, the iMac range is now powered by Apple Silicon, but it's not a new chip. This is the same M1 chip that we just saw released with the 13-inch MacBook Pro and the new Mac Mini. The next possibly overlooked detail on my list has to do with the iPad Pro. Now, in terms of functionality, the iPad Pro is more or less the same as it was before this event, with the main differences being 2 things. Number 1, a brighter display, and number 2, a faster chip. Oh, and there is this one extra little detail, which I don't even think was talked about on stage, and that's the fact that you can now get up to 16 gigs of RAM in your iPad Pro. That's a huge leap from the 6 gigs that you could previously get on an iPad Pro. This is just a small spec, but potentially this could be a really big deal because Apple is anticipating something making use of all of that RAM. Could it be that Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro and other Pro apps might be making their way to the iPad Pro around WWDC in a month and a half or so? I don't know, but it's intriguing. Next up, let's talk AirTags. Well, AirTag, if you want to call it by its proper name. They're finally here. They're going to be useful. I'm already seeing some interesting accessories like Follow Paw, which will let you track your pets. And I have to say, I'm kind of surprised by the price. I thought these were going to be more than $29 for a single. But what I'm here to clue you into is that the AirTag battery is going to be user replaceable, which also means that no, they're not going to be rechargeable. The good news is, I suppose, that they should last up to 1 year. Now, one more potentially overlooked detail for you before I get into my top 5 most exciting details from this event, and then also my top 5 disappointments, and it has to do with the Apple TV. Now, obviously, when it comes to the new Apple TV, that updated Siri Remote is going to be getting a lot of attention. But the new color balance feature that works with your iPhone's proximity sensor along with its camera to color balance your TV definitely shouldn't be slept on. As a pro video creator, I can tell you that proper color balance makes an enormous world of difference. When everything's properly dialed in and correctly balanced, it makes such a huge difference. And I'm guessing that when people try this out, they're going to be pretty blown away. And as a quick bonus, I'll just briefly mention, there's a purple iPhone now. So there's that. All right, my top 5 most exciting details, along with my top 5 disappointments from today's event, are coming up shortly. But let me first just take a quick second to thank today's sponsor for making this video possible, Clean My Mac X. If you didn't already know, Clean My Mac X is an all-in-one cleaning and optimizing app for your Mac. It's simple, user-friendly, and performs useful functions like scanning for junk files and freeing up storage space with the popular Smart Scan feature, which not only detects log and cache files that are no longer needed, but also performs a malware check and performs system optimizations. So whether you want to detect performance-draining processes or get more control over apps and files, or whether you have an older Mac or an Apple Silicon Mac, keep things running as smoothly as possible by checking out Clean My Mac X. All right, now obviously somebody like me who's really immersed in the Apple ecosystem is going to find almost everything from an event like we had today pretty interesting. But here are the top 5 details that I either wasn't expecting or maybe stop and pause and say, whoa. And we're gonna start things with that new Siri Remote. Now, as you're looking at it, it obviously gives off a classic Apple TV vibe, but what you have to appreciate is that new dedicated power button and dedicated mute button. And that new click pad looks like an especially great step forward because you get real buttons, number 1, and touch-enabled swipe gestures. So come on, it seems like the best of both worlds for the people who hated that old remote and wanted something new. All right, next up, I am super excited that the new iPad Pro got Thunderbolt 4 support. The obvious benefit right out of the gate is faster transfer speeds, which makes a lot of sense if you're gonna have a Pro device. But I think that Apple strongly hinted at better external display support today, maybe coming at WWDC. Because why else would you go to the trouble of mentioning that it could work with the Pro Display XDR? Out of all the day's announcements and interesting new details, the third most exciting thing for me today, I think, was just that redesign of the iMac. The colors look incredible. Who wouldn't want that sitting on their desk? And actually, I'm kind of hoping that Apple will now bring these kind of colors to the MacBook lineup, because it seems like we're in a brave new world of colorful Macs, so why not? But from the side, it does very much look like somebody mounted a big, thin iPad to the display. Although, while it does share some design language with an iPad Pro, it's not a touchscreen device. So when Apple's talking about, well, this and that iOS app is gonna be available for the M1 powered Mac, you gotta keep in mind, you can't touch that display. All right, let's get back to AirTags for a second, because that was exciting, not as exciting as a new iMac design. I mean, let's be real, it's an item tracker, and those have been around for years. But I do have to say, the precision finding feature does look pretty incredible since it marries AR with camera input and then also pulls in accelerometer and gyroscope info to be able to tell you something as precise and useful as something is 20 feet to your right. That's pretty incredible. Now, for my 5th most exciting thing today, I'm gonna throw everybody for a loop and say that it's that new Apple Podcasts app. Seems like a whole new experience. I've actually been getting pretty into podcast listening in the last 6 months or 7 months. Been getting a lot deeper into that ecosystem. So the new channels feature feels like a great way to aid discovery. All right, now real quick, before we get into my top 5 disappointments, let me just say, if you're getting any value out of this video, take this opportunity to hit the subscribe button, because I've got lots of additional videos around this event coming out very soon. And also WWDC is coming up. I'm gonna be all over that as well. There's all kinds of Apple related content here on this channel. You can check the back catalog and see if it's worth it, but do yourself a favor, because I don't want you guys to miss out. Okay, are we ready for my top 5 disappointments? The first one has to do with the iPad Pro. Actually, a lot of them probably do have to do with the iPad Pro. I really like that new white Magic Keyboard, at least the looks of it. It may get really dirty, so we'll see how that plays out in reality. But I'm disappointed, and I've already talked about this, so I'm not gonna dwell on it, that we didn't get more robust iPadOS external display support. That's just really disappointing. I'm also very disappointed that Apple didn't take this opportunity to move the camera on the front of the iPad to what I consider to be the top, which is the top or side as it is right now, when you're looking at the iPad horizontally, right? I think more people use the iPad, especially with the Magic Keyboard, in a horizontal position than they do vertically. I wish that they could move that camera. I know they didn't really change too much about the industrial design, the outer casing of the iPad Pro this year, but that was disappointing. Rumors were absolutely swirling that we were gonna get some new AirPods, the AirPods 3 potentially at this event, and that didn't happen. And that's a little bit disappointing because my AirPods Pro, which I'm now on pair number 2, continue to be broken, and I haven't ended up replacing them because they had that weird crackling issue. Got one replaced, and it was just too much of a pain to keep replacing over and over again. So I was gonna pick up the new AirPods 3 if they came out, and they didn't. So yeah, I'm bummed. The new iMacs that dropped today do have an updated camera. That's good. I mean, that's needed, that's necessary, but it's still only 1080p. I don't understand. Apple could easily stick a 4K camera in there, or at least make it an option, and maybe that would have to be with the Pro device. I mean, the 1080p camera, it's going to look a lot better. We've seen other Macs with this computational camera, and it is an improvement. I just wish that it was better. For my 5th and final disappointment, and really honestly, I feel like I'm kind of nitpicking because this was a really exciting Apple event, there was a lot here. But while Apple did announce plenty of new accessories, one thing we didn't get was a new Apple Pencil. That was rumored, and it got me thinking I wouldn't mind seeing something with a few new features, kind of keep things fresh. Some extra functionality, maybe in terms of some new buttons or sensors, new tips would be pretty cool. We'll just have to see what the future holds. All right, thanks for joining me for this video. If you watched this far and you're not subscribed, subscribe right now because I've got 2 other videos that I'm filming today to help you decide whether or not you should spend the money on that iPad Pro or on that new iMac. I'll be covering the AirTags and everything else announced in more depth in the coming days as well. But that's it for this video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Later.